earth, the energy comes down into the earth, either with the menstruating blood or with the baby. Something changes during this perimenopausal stage. And what I think would be interesting today is to take, for example, hot flashes. So hot flashes are all, often talked about as this annoying thing. Oh, good, I'm glad I've not got much. Oh, God, what a, or even Elizabeth said, I dodged that. Well, actually, our body is creating changes within the liminal phase that are helping us transform. And so hot flashes, for example, who in this room has had a hot flash? How does the energy feel? Where does it begin and what direction does it go in?
It goes out like that.
It goes upwards and out.
Yeah.
It goes upwards. So it's very different. Energy has changed direction. Not because we're ill, not because there's something wrong with us, not because we're going to slide off the corner of the earth into nowhere land. No, because we are in a normal developmental stage of our journeys. We would not systematically, and I'm not against HRT, but we wouldn't systematically give pubescent girls medicine to stop their puberty. So we should not offer every woman medicine to stop this empowering stage. What we should offer women, or women should offer each other, is a framework, is new language, is a new approach. And that's really what my work is about. So what the framework I use is the alchemical stages. The alchemical stages are the nearest we have in psychology that represents the processes of the psyche. The psyche is our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body, and the shadow sides of all that. So when we are in perimenopause, it's not just a physical thing, as we know. The whole of our psyche is transforming. The more we bring awareness to it, the more we have a structure and a framework, the more we transform, the more we become whole, the more we become ready for leadership. I'm a grandmother. Who else is a grandmother in this room? When I look at the world, I don't know how you feel, but when I look at the world today, I am frightened for my grandchildren. I have 3 of them. And my voice as a grandmother needs to be heard. But I cannot share my voice if I am not whole, if I have not transformed myself into an elder. We do not just become a wise elder. It is not a God-given. It isn't, oh, you lucky woman, now you're 65 or you're 70, you're a wise elder. No way. Like in all the tribes of the world, every developmental stage has an initiation. What our dominant society has done has duped us. It has taken our initiation away. It has disempowered us by transforming words such as crone, which means actually crowning, hag, which has a connotation with holy, etc. The dominant patriarchal society does not want the voice of the elder woman to take the place that is her rightful place, which is leadership. We have a responsibility today to work our perimenopause, and what I offer are the alchemical stages, in order to take our rightful place. Not to moan. When we have a hot flash, instead of saying, oh my God, we need to say, hang on. This is a powerful turning around of my energy. What am I? It's calcination. It's the first alchemical stage. It's the beginning of transformation. When I have a hot flash, I need to say, what am I transforming? What is coming up to be transformed? And often we can stop and say, hang on, what was I thinking? What was going on that minute that the hot flash came? Because that can give us a lot of details. The other thing about hot flashes, there is a Tibetan group of masters. They live in the mountains, and they're a subgroup of Tibetan Buddhism, and they're highly, highly sought after. And they do a meditation called Tumo meditation. What they do is they try to create hot flashes within their own bodies in order to transform and purify. They're actually known, people say these Tumo meditators you can put a wet sheet around them and they'll dry it with the heat. So what I say to women, when you have a hot flash, these Buddhist monks are trying to create this. This is a gift of transformation. It is our perspective on our attitude that needs to change. We need to create our own language, our own support system around menopause, so we don't get duped and we don't join in the disempowering language that's made by patriarchy to sell medicines to keep us disempowered. That's really the journey that I'm offering. There are 7 stages. Each stage has a lot to do with the different changes that we experience as women. First stage has a lot to do with hot flashes. The second stage is solutio. I can't go through them in any detail because we haven't got enough time. But the second stage is solutio. It's a lot to do with the hot night sweats, the watery side, where the unconscious comes through. So what is happening? What is this transformation? I can't go through all the stages, and you'd have to come and work with me to do that. But the transformation is this. The psyche, so I just explain what the psyche is, all these parts of ourselves, is continuously cycling through itself. In the same way as our digestive system, for example, when we eat, most of us are still digesting now, even if we ate 3 or 4 hours ago. Our digestive system is always doing its thing. Our circulatory system is always doing its thing, or else we'd be dead. Our psyche is always doing its thing. What is its thing? The thing of the psyche is to be continuously bringing up unconscious material for us to look at, integrate, heal with, become whole. What do we do in our dominant culture? We go on our screens, we eat something, we addict, we drink, we work too much, we may have sex, we do whatever we can to avoid it. But perimenopause, because of the physical changes that happen, is absolutely the right moment for doing this work. For example, gonadotropin-releasing hormone increases at perimenopause. It doesn't increase and come down like a cycle, it increases. It is what Christian Northrup calls the mind reset of menopause, which means we become more psychic, we become more intuitive. That is our role. That is what our journey through being a woman up until now has been getting us ready for. So one of the things that I work with women during perimenopause is that we go through, and naturally, you don't even have to do this work, and you'll notice your psyche, when you're in perimenopause, is asking you to, in a way, go through your life with a fine comb, looking at every detail. That is natural. That is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be going through everything in your life so that instead of being subjected to it, even if it's good or bad, you integrate it. It becomes what? Your wisdom. That's the initiation. By integrating, going through, being supported by other women, supporting other women, working through any abuses, any difficult things, abortions, stillbirths, difficult marriages, what it was like to be a woman in your culture. All these things come up. We work through them with the help of the changes in our body and the alchemical stages, and then they become our wisdom. I always say to women, you have 2 choices. We've all been in a room. Imagine there's a wedding, a family wedding. There's loads of people you know and loads of people you don't know. And in the corner of the room, there's one old lady with a twinkle in her eye. And all the young women know she's wise. She has a twinkle in her eye. She's playful. You think, I'd like to sit next to her. She's got something. She's done the work. There's the other old woman, Auntie so-and-so, who no one wants to sit near. Why? She's always moaning. Nothing's ever good enough. She's, upset and tired and resentful and bitter. She hasn't done the work. So what I ask women during my perimenopause is, what type of older woman do you want to become? Where are you going? What's your intention? Who are you making yourself into? What is it to be whole? Who are you as a leader in this world? Okay, so that's really the introduction to the work I do. I think it would be good to now open it up and see what, ask questions. Let's talk about this.
Well, I just think that was so healthy to listen to. It's just kind of so different to what we hear every day, isn't it? And so I'd love to know what other people have got to say, what they think. What were we going to say, Cathy? Sorry. No,
Has anybody got any questions that we could take further? Yes, Cathy.
Okay, it's all really great, but I don't really get the hot flushes. A little bit of a night sweat. I'm on a HRT because I felt I was losing my mind basically, and I'm not a person to lose my mind. I'm quite together person, and it was really like somebody, as I call it, it's like alien kidnapped my body, and I felt completely different. It's very physical feeling of like a joint aches and muscle. Waking up in the morning was like completely, sometimes still stiffness is like something that I don't know, really unfamiliar. So for me it was more, the hot flushes was literally not an issue. Some days I feel hotter than usual, but nothing that I can tell my friends about. So how do I approach? When I felt that I'm gonna risk my relationship here and I live with somebody that I really cherish and love and care for, and I don't want to risk it. Then I turned to the doctors and I said, listen, that needs to be stopped. And I find that the patches sort of leveled me out, but I'm still completely hormonal with my period, with period pains. So it's very confusing time.
Well,
been like this for over a year. So I thought, any suggestion, anything you can?
Well, let me reply to some of the things you said. So I think we have to lose our mind to find it, for a start. One of the studies that has been done on many perimenopausal women is that the best outcome is when women work together in a group, when women have each other. You have much better outcomes in terms of, menopausal experiences, let's say, which is right. Women always came together in groups. The circle is the most organic form, and it's where women found each other, supported each other. So I think it is very important. And the work that I offer, the women that I work with, we work together in a group. And then my offer to them at the end of their journey is that they take the work and they seed other groups in their community. That's what they get when they work with me, is they take it on and seed it elsewhere. So you'll see the alchemy of menopause being taught by other women. They mention me, but that's all. And that's the idea, that we bring this for more women. The other thing that we look at a lot during menopause is what's called décodage biologique in French. It's biogenealogy. Behind every symptom, that you can't just look at a symptom on a physical level. We go back to the psyche. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and the shadow sides of all that. That is how we should have, that is what holistic healing is. Many people brand words. They brand alchemy, they brand holistic. They talk about these things without knowing what they're talking, or without even thinking what they mean. Holistic to me means I have to approach the whole person. So biogenealogy is what are the emotional and mental aspects of a physical difficulty. So I can tell you, stiffness is to do about lack of value in ourselves, often. So when I'm working with women, I would also work with that aspect in order to help bring some movement to those joints. Somebody was in here, I think it was Emily, maybe, who was talking about high blood pressure. Yes, take medicines for high blood pressure, but don't just take medicines. Work on the emotions and the mind and everything that goes with it. For me, high blood pressure is a lot to do with unintegrated anger. Anger is a really brilliant thing that women at menopause have the right to feel. I don't think we'd be normal if we didn't feel angry with what's going on in the world. Part of the calcinatio stage, the hot flash, is about fiery emotions. It's turning up the heat. And when we're in group, we allow each other, we hold space for each other to have these emotions. Most of us in this room probably were told to be a good little girl when we were little. Little girls don't get angry. Little girls don't say fuck off. You know, little girls are nice and pretty and sit there silently. We've all been brought up like that, or most of us, I can imagine, in this room. So there's that work to do. I would also say with HRT, and I'm not against anybody doing anything they need to do, but I think you need to be very aware of what's happening. So with HRT, there is more, there are many more risks of ovarian cancer, for example. And with HRT, there is also, what you're doing is you're halting the developmental stage. If you come off the HRT, it'll be there. You don't get rid of it. It's not a medicine that says we're getting rid of all this. It just says you're because of the hormones we're giving you, we're halting it. So at some point you have to deal with it or be on HRT forever. So my response would be, you need to be in a group of women going through this together, step one. You need to look at all aspects of the psyche and really work this stage. You know, one of the things that I always say to women as well during perimenopause, this is not me, this is the advice I would give you. Perimenopause needs, in order to use the transformation in the best possible way, at least, and this is the very minimum, 1 hour of quality alone time a day to work on yourself, to have a hot bath, to be with candles in a bath with some oils, or to sit and journal, or to go out in nature alone. How many women give themselves that? Carry on going, busy work, busy this. You cannot transform yourself. You cannot go into initiation. We have to go into the underworld. That's something else I'll talk about in a minute. Yes, Lisa.
Oh, sorry, I was just putting my hand up saying, yes, I do try to do that. Thank you.
Yes, good. I think it's vital, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I just think Susanna had her hand up as well.
Hello there.
Hi.
Yes, I was just saying yes to also to that
Alone
really
time.
important hour a day for the inner
Yes.
work. It feels indulgent, and it feels really like we might be taking too much time away from our families, but it's so necessary to do that.
Absolutely necessary. Absolutely.
So I was just in agreement with. I was just going to clap my hands to everything you said. Thank you so much. So I'm 3 years since I've bled, so I'm postmenopausal in some ways, but I'm still having symptoms and still processing it. So I've worked in Swansea, and I've delivered Welcome to Menopause to my community.
Great.
Only in a small way. So it's been in response to the huge popularity of HRT. We're trying to show natural ways of transitioning through menopause. And in my tradition, from my training as with crystal acupuncture, which is really drawing on the wisdom of Chinese medicine, that it's we need to work with our kidney energy, and the hot flushes are really a sign of the body calling, aren't they? That that we're over revving the system, that we're overheating our engines, and we're not doing that 1 hour a day of being with ourselves and having some quiet times throughout the day. So thank you so much for your amazing work. I've just I think it's fabulous. The only thing I was going to ask was that although I'm working in this way with trying to make this natural transition through menopause, I'm a little bit stuck in some symptoms, and I agree with you. It's about looking at the emotions of what's going on behind the any symptoms, but with joint pain. So I've had a whole history of autoimmune disease, and I've worked continuously throughout my life with diet and lifestyle and energy balancing, but this has suddenly come up with this joint pain. It's very much in my family's history, and menopause is a process. We need to take our time. It's not going to happen overnight like HRT. It's going to go and it's a journey of wisdom into our 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s. The bit that I'm finding quite hard is that while I'm not resolving my knee and joint pain in my fingers and toes, the concern is that I'm doing damage, irreversible damage, because I'm not transitioning and resolving quickly enough. I think that's the bit that I'm anxious about and stuck with, where at the same time I'm trying to lead and help other women, but I have an anxiety around this.
Well, I hear you, Susanna. There's a few things that I want to say in reply to what you were talking about. So when you said, you know, it feels a bit sort of selfish or indulgent to have alone time. Well, if you have got girls in your family, you're teaching them the importance of alone time. If you've got boys in your family, you're teaching them the importance that women do what they need to do and take the time they need to take. So I think it's absolutely important. It's not just important for us, but it's important to lead the way in that. And I'll talk about the underworld, which is where we really journey to in a little bit. And we can't journey into the underworld without quality alone time. You mentioned the kidneys and the work of the kidneys. Well, the kidneys are actually the organ that is related to ancestral healing. So something that comes up during the journey of perimenopause is that we situate ourselves. So becoming whole is situating yourself not just in your family system, but in the larger family system. So often ancestral traumas that have been passed down, unintegrated ancestral traumas, for example, that have been passed down from generation to generation can turn up. And so you said the joint pain was something that other people in your family had suffered from. So I would really look at the emotions and the ancestral stories that you're carrying. The motherline work is really important at perimenopause because, you know, we're getting nearer to being an ancestor, which is what a lot of the work in the underworld is about. And it's like Russian dolls. So if we're carrying unintegrated ancestral trauma and we don't deal with it, what actually happens is it gets passed down to the next generation. So part of this journey, and I think really the great interest that so many people have in DNA testing and ancestral research now is actually a collective knowing, even though a lot of people don't even think about it in that way, but it's a collective knowing that if we need to change the future, I mean, we're all aware of that now, but in order, you can't change the future if you haven't mopped up the dirty floor of the past. So there's this collective need to really each one look at our mother lines, because mother lines are the embodied line through mitochondrial DNA. And this comes up a lot at menopause. It's too much to go into now, but it comes up a lot. The hot flashes that you mentioned, Susanna, well, in alchemy, so in the processes of the psyche, which are continually happening, even though a lot of us are unconscious of them, the first stage, this stage of hot flashes, is the beginning of transformation. So what often happens, you know, if you're going to cook an omelette, it's an alchemical process. If you don't put the heat on under the omelette, your runny eggs stay as runny eggs, and it's not, there's no transformation. So the heat is actually transformation, or the beginning of the transformation. What it actually does, that I see working with a lot of women, is that we have created survival strategies. So when we were all little, we were born into a family, into a culture, into a society where we realized very quickly there were certain things that we got good feedback about, and there were certain things about ourselves that weren't acceptable. And these parts of ourselves, we either abandoned or we created survival strategies, or it could be trauma in a family or shock, something happened. Whatever it was, we created survival strategies to survive. So my survival strategy was codependency. If I make sure everybody's okay and I'm what everybody else wants me to be, I'll survive. And when we get to menopause, this initiation is about the survival strategy is no longer a survival strategy. It should have been left most of the time 40 or 50 years ago. What happens in our society is that because there's no one to support us and no one really, you know, our education is very much left brain, these survival strategies we think that's us. They become part of our personality. Oh, that's just who I am. I've always been like that. No, these are often survival strategies that are keeping us from who we really are. And at menopause, they come up. And what often happens is, I see it as a river. So the unconscious is the river. The survival strategy is like a concrete dam that's been built in the river. The hot flash is coming to burn away the survival strategy so the river can flow. The river is your relationship with the unconscious. Every wise elder in the world, every shaman in the world, every medicine person in the world has a deep relationship with the unconscious. That's what it's about. It's not the left brain, it's not the intellect, it's not book knowledge. It is a deep relationship with the unconscious that makes us whole. And that is really the core of any healing, but it's the core of perimenopause, is my relationship with my unconscious. And first of all, we have to break down the survival strategies because they keep us from the unconscious because we're frightened when we're little of what might come up. You know, a child that's been sexually abused, pre-verbal, will have a survival strategy. And that survival strategy is actually often cellular memory. The body will hold on to the memory of the abuse, because if the mind understood what had happened, that child wouldn't be able to deal with it. So the body holds on to the abuse. At perimenopause, women have a lot of experience of releasing memories they didn't remember with their minds, but they remember with their bodies. Okay, so one of the stages in the alchemical stage is coagulatio, coming back into the body. That is embodiment, full embodiment is part of the process initiation of perimenopause. So I've gone on and on. So let's ask Angie what she wanted to say.
Hi, Cathy. I just wanted
Hi.
to thank you for addressing high blood pressure. That was me.
Oh,
That was
Angie. Okay.
earlier. That really resonated with me. Thank you so much.
No worries. I hope, oh, sorry. I hope, you know, if we were working together, I'd really work on, you know, and I wouldn't get involved in what you take medically, or that's your journey, but on the level that I work, I would really work on these deep emotions and the emotions that are fiery. So fiery emotions can take many forms. Anger is a big one, but so is frustration, so is fear. My first calcinatio that I lived through consciously was fear, and it burnt me up. I thought I was going to die. The other thing is that there is one of the alchemical stages, which is called mortificatio. When I work with women through the mortificatio, it is about what, you know, any initiation, any liminal phase, we have to let go of a lot. What needs to be let go of? What do I have to let die? And often what we have to let go of are things that at one stage in our life, we put a lot of value into. Could be a relationship, could be a work, could be a place we're living. And it's frightening to let go. And one of the things that the psyche doesn't realize, that when you're going through a mortificatio, which is, I will say that, sorry, I'm going a bit all over the place, but mortificatio you have all lived through during your cycles. Mortificatio is the cycle of the darkness before your period. When the egg has been released, it's not going to be fertilized, but it hasn't yet come out as menstruation. That's the dark phase. It is a natural phase. A lot of women feel bad about that phase because they're in a bad mood, because they're angry, they're called hysterical. It's a normal phase. It is the phase of what isn't working in my life. What do I need to let go of? What needs to die? But there's no space for women to express that. We're called grumpy or stupid or hysterical, or, you know. So we've all experienced that phase. In perimenopause, it's much bigger. So it really is. And the psyche thinks it's really dying. The psyche doesn't make the difference between a mortificatio, which is just a letting go, and real death. It feels like we're dying. And that's why the idea of the group and holding space for each other is really important. Because when somebody's going through something, they need space, they need love, they need understanding, they need to know it's normal. That's the other thing, the alchemical stages, when women realize that this is a normal, natural, one of the natural stages, it's like, oh, I'm not going bonkers. There's not something wrong with me. It's normal. But it's been taken away. We have allowed menopause to be stolen from us. And my question to you really is, how are you going to reclaim it? First of all, with our language. Elizabeth.
So much good stuff, so many threads to pick up at, but in particular, this idea of a liminal state is ever present in the journey of a priestess, really, that you are simultaneously full of potential, yet unable to do anything with it because you're in that state, and it's such a powerful, but you do feel paralyzed in that state. And so I'm fascinated to see if you were presented with a set of women in front of you and your box of oils, and you said, right, this would be my entry oil, where would you put your hand?
Well, I don't think I'd have an entry oil. What I would have, and I was just about to talk about this, and you mentioned the priestesses. So one of the aspects of perimenopause is the dark goddess. She is the mother of the crone. And if you look in all cultures, she's had a hard time. You know, in European culture, she's the Black Madonna, who Marion Woodman, who's a brilliant Jungian analyst who worked a lot with women, for those of you who don't know her, actually talked about the Black Madonna as going into hiding for many generations to prevent humanity from destroying her. So that part of us, we all have a dark goddess. It's our shadow. And it's not a negative shadow, oh, how bad I am. It's a rejected part of our feminine. And part of the big part of what we're reclaiming is her. And up until now, it's been dangerous. We've all been, I know I've got, you know, I'm clear about what I think and feel. And I've been in rooms with men where I haven't felt safe with my own thoughts and feelings. And so I would reject or abandon or repress the dark goddess in me because I know she's not welcome or safe. So in society as a whole, every culture has a dark goddess, you know, Lilith, Hecate, Kamakaya, Kali, Durga. But now we haven't got a choice. We have to reclaim her. We can't not reclaim her because she is what is needed to heal the earth. That's why the earth is in such a bad place, because we've rejected, abandoned the deep feminine. So really, I would say, in answer to your question, I would work with both the concept of the dark goddess. So I encourage each woman to find the dark goddess. Artemis is an aspect of the dark goddess. Diana is an aspect of the dark goddess. I would, my advice would be, you know, either find the dark goddess from the land of your ancestors, of your mother line. So mine's Kamakaya, which is where the yoni of Sati and Shiva had a big problem. It's a long mythological story, but her yoni landed in Assam, which is where my mother line is from. And there's a temple there called the Kamakaya temple. And it's a menstruating temple to the blood. And it's also a place of sacrifice. So she's my dark goddess. So I would say, find your dark goddess, either through the lands of your people or through a goddess that resonates with you. So she's your mother during this period. So the oils that I would use as, and this wouldn't be an entry oil, this would be an oil throughout. So the oils I use for the dark goddess are yerba mansa, which is rare. You could use the hydrosol. They're root oils. So yerba mansa, valerian or Indian valerian, nagamota, even some medicines. You know, you don't even have to just use oils. You could use root medicine, osha, burdock. Because what you really want to do is get it into the earth. She's the deepest, darkest part of the feminine. And she's the life, death, rebirth goddess. So she is the mother of both the perimenopause and where you're heading. And we live in a society where death is, you know, taboo. We don't allow things to decompose in our agriculture. We have, you know, these empty, barren lands that are supposed to be agriculture, where nature never leaves anything barren, always has decomposition. She's the part that honors death, but in a positive way. We go back to the stage of mortificatio. What needs to die? What do I need to let go of to become fully myself? What is holding me back from my true, authentic, soulful life? And so it would be the mother of the crone. I love, and I would say with the oils of the root oils, I also always put a little bit on the front of my hand, because what I love is the blend of the medicine with the oils in my hand, my body oils. That mix is what makes the magic. So I'd work with the dark goddess. She's the mother of the crone. And then I'd work through the alchemical stages, supporting each other, transforming, stepping into our power, screaming and crying if we need to, loving and supporting. And I see hundreds of women. I've been doing this work now for nearly a decade. And I've seen so many women go from, you know, disempowerment to authentic empowerment. And that's the journey of menopause. It's a gift.
It's fascinating that you say root oils, because I can remember talking to Valerie-Ann Woolwood when I met her in China. And she does a system of work called Aromagenera, which is inherited ancestral memory. And she said the same thing. She said root oils as well. And so if it was okay, I would also add, like, I found spikenard to be really useful, and the grasses, how the grasses, specifically the ones with the deep roots,
somebody
like
mentioned
vetiver.
vetiver.
Yeah.
Better, you know, what I would say for vetiver, for me, so we talked about cellular memory coming into the body, embodiment. I would use vetiver for women who don't feel safe in their bodies. A big part of menopause, as well as I said, embodiment. My journey to feel safe in my body was a long one, and I still have to work at it because my body was not a safe place. And so we work on, you know, like a lot of people say, oh, women are no longer sexy after, they don't have a sexual urge after perimenopause. It's not true. What I believe is that women refuse to lie anymore. They will only be sexy if they can listen and allow their bodies to express themselves in the way they want to. So I make the weirdest noises. I have to go through the barrier of sexual abuse to get to a place that I can be relaxed. So I need a partner who can hold space for that. And I've learned that. Vetiver helps with that a lot. Palo Santo, somebody mentioned. Palo Santo I don't sell because of its, you know, the way it's treated, because it takes 20 years to extract a good Palo Santo oil. But Palo Santo, the limonene, it's nearly 98% limonene, and then there's furocoumarine, or no, it's not. It's the one in pennyroyal. Can't remember the molecule, but it develops as the Palo Santo decomposes. So there's this idea of mortificatio. So it's ideal for mortificatio and for the dark goddess. What I'm going to do, I'm doing a free immersive experience about meeting the dark goddess and getting advice from her. And I'm going to put the link in here. Okay, I've put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to come. It'll be an immersive experience where I guide you.
That's very exciting. So when's that being held?
It's going to be on Zoom, and it's going to be, I think it's the 1st or something. You'll have to look at the link. It's very early June.
Lovely. Thank you. That's a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, while we have a group of people here, I just have to tell you that your patchouli and your rooibos oils are just my favorite oils in my box. So I have to say, if anybody wants to get any of those, grab her, because you'll never find finer ones. They are beautiful.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, I've really enjoyed this. I want to know if anybody's got any other questions. You know, there's so much, it's so deep. I feel like I've sort of spotted around the place, but I wanted to give you a kind of feel of the work. But if anybody's got any other questions or anything they want to share, now's the time. I have a group on Facebook called The Alchemy of Menopause. And
I'll share.
yeah, somebody's got the book. Yes, who was that said that? Bonnie?
Bonnie, yeah.
Hi, Bonnie.
When I started getting hot flashes, I used to think something's causing this. It's not just menopause. There's something causing it. What am I thinking? What am I doing? And it was always anger, frustration, rage, and stress. And when I realized, okay, so what is it that's bugging me? It would go away.
Yeah. And allowing yourself to feel, you know, anger is a very fine emotion. The problem with anger is when we repress it. So anger, if I say, look, I'm really angry, as long as I don't take it out on someone else, but I express it and I feel it, that's fine. What happens is when we repress it, it comes out in passive aggressiveness, or it can come out on the other side of the planet with somebody getting raped in the street. It becomes undealt with. We don't take responsibility for our emotion, and it goes into the collective. So it is a responsibility to be able to feel and acknowledge our anger. So thank you for that, Bonnie. And
well, I've even played with it farther than that. I mean, I'm 64 now. I started going through menopause at 52. I can bring on a hot flash now, just getting pissed off. I've tried it.
Yeah.
And so it just tells me that is not where you're supposed to be in life.
Well, it's Kundalini energy. It's transformative energy. It's showing you there's a cycle. So there's not just the anger, but there's the whole unconscious journey behind that anger. You know, you might find that anger actually started 4 generations ago when your great-grandmother had her children taken away because she happened to be native or whatever it was.
Yeah, so, I've done that.
There's a whole, the first stage of the journey of each cycle is to break down the thing that's stopping us feeling. But beyond that, there's a hell of a lot of material. We become, you know, I think if we really work it, we become masters or mistresses of unconscious material. That is what intuition and psychic ability is that we are at home in the underworld, dark goddess, and we're at home with the invisible. We've been duped by thinking that everything is in the material left brain world. Everything is either intellectual or material. Whereas now science is starting to see that the unconscious is a much bigger part of the psyche and is much wiser than the intellect. The unconscious is very feminine as well. It's in the dark. It's like a baby that grows in the womb. We don't see the baby until it's ready to come forward. The unconscious is the same. It all happens in the dark. And then our job is to recognize and allow it to birth. I mean, there's so much, I can't go on and on, but Shelley, let me.
I totally empathize with that. I can go on and on also, as many people know. But I just want to tell you, I'm on the other side of menopause. I was lucky to go through it without noticing. But I want to say that it is very important. I just emphasize this. I can't imagine how we haven't realized the power that we have after, the creative power that can now go into other things, like this group. And this is a place where we can thrive after and during this time of transition. And I'm very grateful also to Elizabeth for creating this group, as always. So just wanted to say thank you so much.
And I think, you know, what you're highlighting is that this work, I have many, you know, not baby crones, but mature crones in the group, because women who feel either they want to go through the stages because they didn't make the most of it when they were in perimenopause, or just crones who come and hold space, and younger women. One of the things, and I think many of you will relate to this, when we're younger, you know, I have a daughter-in-law who's in her mid-30s. She's got one baby, about to have another. She's trying to build her career. She feels like there's never enough time. She's got to get there now. And I say to her, hang on. And this is actually quite nice because we're going back to the beginning. If women's true maturity is at menopause, there's no rush. We have time. It is at perimenopause that we need to really do the work. And then we've got 20, 30 years later to lead. You don't. And so young women feel a lot better about it. They think, oh, wow, I've got time. I don't have to be at my tip top now that I'm 35 or 40. And that's really important for women to see the journey of their life. You know, one of the ways that patriarchal society has stolen menopause is by saying that women's power is in their sexiness and their beauty. Bullshit. That is a biological necessity for attracting a male like a peacock, you know, or whatever, for reproduction. It is not our power. It isn't. That is a mistake. As somebody else said, Melanie, do you ever use mugwort? Yeah, well, interesting, because mugwort's very good for dreaming. And so dreams are another part. Solutio, which is the stage after calcinatio, which is where the unconscious really starts to come through. We work with dreams. Every aspect of a dream is a part of yourself. Dreams are the royal road of the unconscious. They are gifts from the unconscious, and they're the best gift because the left brain is off, isn't there to interfere. So yes, mugwort and clary sage is really good for dreaming. Any oil actually that you're really in relationship with, you could put a tiny drop here if it's not a phenol heavy oil, so it doesn't burn your skin, or in a carrier oil, or leave it open by your bed and ask for a dream. I often ask for a dream with something that I'm working on. I ask for clarity. Okay, anybody else before we start to head off? Was that you, Melanie?
Yeah, I had a question before. Let me just go back up to it. I remember it being like really, oh yeah. In regards to, you mentioned the dark, something
Goddess.
dark. No, not the goddess, but right before you start menstruating, there was a
yes.
dark.
But there's the dark period of the cycle, which is it's the death period of the cycle. It's when I said, like, the egg has been released, it hasn't been fertilized, and it's on its way to becoming a period. That period of the cycle is called the dark period of the cycle. It's like the dark moon, and it's the period where we are most in contact with the death part of the cycle, which is part of life, which is the dark goddess, is why that she's the mother of the crone, because death is nothing to be frightened of. Death is part of life. Death in war is something to be frightened of. Death in ecological, abuse is something to be frightened of. But the natural cycle of death is the natural cycle of death. And so that's when we let go of things.
So that is right before you start your period, right?
Yeah.
So is that considered PMS, the PMS time?
PMS can, different women have different experiences of PMS. Yes, PMS is usually somewhere between the last 15 days of the menstrual cycle. Some women have it for 3 weeks. I used to get very, very bad PMS. I'd say that PMS is to do with deep trauma in the mother line.
And what about if you're an empath? What about if you have these heightened abilities before you bleed? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the cycle. I think most women are empathic, but if you're feeling extremely intuitive, I would say take yourself into nature on your own and journal, make art, the unconscious. So the intuition, as we said, is part of the unconscious. It's an ability to know what's going on in the invisible and in the unconscious. The unconscious doesn't speak the same language as the left brain. The left brain is very analytical, very linear. It's very necessary. It's not a great master. It's a good servant, but it tries to be a master. It's very related to the ego. Whereas there's a language of the unconscious. We've talked about one. You mentioned mugwort, dreams. Dreams are one of the languages of the unconscious that we need to get fluent in. So there's dreams, there's automatic writing and journaling, where you just journal, but you don't let the filtering system of the left brain get involved. There's being in nature on your own and really feeling into nature. There's psychedelic therapy. There's sitting and just feeling. Part of the work we do with women in the Alchemy of Menopause is learning to feel. This part, which is very feminine, has never been given any space. We're not taught to feel at school. We're given, all the good notes and the tics are to do with the left brain. So actually, this is a good place to end. So the heart of it is, the question is, what is it to be alive inside? That's a big question. What is the model of health? We know the model of health of a digestive system. We know the model of health of all the physical aspects, but what is the model of health of the psyche? Well, it is what is called sacred union, or the inner marriage. And it is two forces that come together to create. So the ultimate is a sperm and an egg. Whatever your gender preference, whatever your sexual preference, to create a third, we need these two forces. So we need an egg or a sperm, or with plants, we need an ovum and pollen. And within the psyche, we need to be in balance between what is yang, or inner masculine, and what is yin, or inner feminine. And they need to be in harmony. So ultimately, all this work I've been talking about is to work out where is it out of balance, so that we work a lot on our inner masculine as women. A lot of our work in the alchemy menopause is actually building a relationship with our inner masculine. But to do that, we have to first look at the tyrant. Often we have internalized a tyrant through the history of our lineages. There's a lot involved, but ultimately it is to come together, these two forces, to be the creative leader and wise elder that we are meant to become. So that's where I'm going to end. Lots of love.
Goodness me. Go on.
Well, I was
Finish
just going to
the
say, you're all welcome to the free immersive experience in June. It'd be good to see you there.
Well, I will definitely see all of you there. I know that. But for me, it was just such an aha moment, because obviously in Greece, the dark goddess was Persephone, and the Melissa are the priestesses of Demeter core. That's the crone, and so this idea of going downwards, and just how that they were the heralds of all these women together in these beautiful festivals. I do feel a deep mourning for the loss of those festivals, I have to say. And so it's lovely that you hold space in that way. And
well, we had our own little festival today.
We have, and actually it's been so nourishing. Thank you. And can I just say, apart from being incredibly wise, you are such an amazing presenter. So I feel really honoured that you've done that here today. So
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for thinking of me, and lots of love, everybody. And I'll see you around.
Just one quick apology before we go, in that
Yeah.
I missed the first 2 minutes on the recording. I missed the whales, but your wisdom was there. So thank you. Good night, everybody.
Lots of love.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you soon,
Bye.
Elizabeth.
Bye-bye, darling. Thank you so much.
Bye.
What we go?